So, now we're suddenly hit with another tall order. We gotta escort Garen to one last location. Look at your map. I will show you the route. What frickin' route again? Half of the last two chapters have been desert and jungle, so I can't say this is specific enough. Chapter 4 is big, and while that's generally in reference to the location it takes place, this chapter is a lot more reflective of the remaining two-thirds of the game, with the first third forming some uneven baby steps. The chapter number has caught up to the area number, and this new unlocked terrain, Area 4, comprises a colossal middle section of the island. This chapter is also the roadblock for a handful of people, as it was to me, due to the glaring design flaw hinted in the previous chapter. This entire new section of land, pivotal to a majority of the game, is locked off at one of the cave doors, which is not only inaccessible in the previous chapter despite having the key, but is mentioned nowhere in the quest dialogue. Look at your map, I will show you the route. All Garen gives you is the frickin' destination. As a kid, I got stuck on this part for a while before watching a walkthrough of the game, and even then I thought, oh, that's some BS. So yeah, probably one of the game's most critical, if not most infamous, convolutions. It generally won't pull something this cryptic again, though there are still a few contenders later in the game. While Garen says he has to move to his hideout to get supplies, he sticks around there for the rest of the game, which you could explain as a means of conducting sabotage away from the resistance base to prevent attracting too much attention. However, this does have the annoying byproduct of making the player everyone's little message runner, and some transportation could really be appreciated. In future chapters, I might want to clear out the Nektan at this particular junction in advance, or even just fast forward some of the traveling. It hasn't gotten particularly bad just yet, though. Lo and behold, Area 4, the big boy. Not quite what you were expecting, was it? Here are the spots that were blocked off earlier. Still gotta get that stone burnout gear. If you haven't gotten it by this point in prior chapters, you'll find no shortage of air and stone enemies here. Damn it, Garen, get out of the way. Well, at any rate, due to the nature of this place, I do a little extra digging periodically, so if you still give a crap about dig spots not being spoiled, timestamps on the screen. Yeah, it's not a lot to look at, but the extra harpoons are a swell addition, and the new buzzsaw weapon known as the Ripper is not too bad of an option either. The only tedious part is how spread out they all are. Not pictured are the obligatory quest dig spots, as well as a pile of rocks that doesn't serve any purpose at coordinate 231, but I'll get to that later. Enemy drops, on the other hand, are quite the smorgasbord. There is quite a handful of new wildlife, though the Fire Gopna is another Air Gopna case of only two existing in this current area. Most of them are located somewhere else, so it's not the best enemy for grinding at this point in the game. The Ussel crabs, pictured at the bottom, drop insanely good gear if you're playing as water, but they're hidden in a secret cave for a quest in a later chapter. They're accessible now, but you'll generally have to know about them in advance to even find them. Because I'm running an ice character, I don't go out of my way to find them in this chapter anyhow. Let's see if I get anything from this one. Nope. While on our way to Garen's, I'll talk about the new enemy types themselves. I mentioned a while back with the rock ussels that they can be considered an enemy archetype. In this chapter, you'll get to meet its functional cousins. The smaller scorpion-looking things are fiku spiders. Normally they don't have pincers and stinger tails, but people have headcanoned these as an island-exclusive subspecies. They behave similarly to ussels, except that they only have 4 MP, deal earth damage, and have no resistance spell. The larger actual scorpions are Kofo Jaga, and instead of debuffing movement points, they just deal straight fire damage. A more intense amount than usual so far. The secret ussel crabs, as you can imagine, are the rock ussels on steroids. Again, we'll encounter them in a later chapter. Overall, this is probably the most appropriate spot in the game to introduce some more Master Builder fauna. It's a good change of pace from the Gafna and Burnak, which have rather similar behavior from element to element, though even more enemy diversity still would have been nice. One last Burnak before I drop Garen off. Nothing again. Our new weapon, the Air Ripper, is obviously based off Radak's Buzzsaw, and works pretty closely too. Straight up intense melee damage. Personally, its high AP cost and limited ammo makes it not worth the trouble, though I can imagine this one in particular being good for an air build. Like with the rock ussels, you can see pretty quickly that Fikus can be loop locked the exact same way. And we finally made it. Get used to seeing this location a lot. Garen gives us some more freebie stuff, and as you can imagine, it's not particularly useful this late in the game. Yeah. This chest normally holds an Earth Slash and an Ice Launcher for our troubles. Again, not bad, but we already dug those up a couple chapters ago. Before we resume questing, I want to get the rest of the buried equipment. An Ice Harpoon is way more useful for my character in any case. The aforementioned quest item. We can only dig this up later. Further down is something very special. An unused warehouse of sorts. Man, these Burnak really love to tail you. Lo and behold! I could speculate forever about what it could have been used for, but thankfully that 2006 story Bible I mentioned all the way back in the introduction to this game narrows it down pretty well. Nothing actually valuable in here, I'm afraid. And outside, you may have noticed a pile of rocks that doesn't actually do anything. It's not linked to any quest, but it could have been planned to. Essentially, though, in light of how accurate this game is to the story Bible from a geographical standpoint, there is one landmark on the Bible's map in roughly the same location. That location is mentioned as the Mountain Hideaway, where a supposed golden Matoran spies on the Paraka Fortress and goes on weapon-stealing sabotage missions. Sounds like what Garen and the player have already been busy doing. Ooh, hey, the harpoon. Yeah, this pile of rocks is a little deceptively hidden. A glimpse of yet another locked area. But yeah, the Mountain Hideaway thing. The Story Bible rough draft has so many weird, disconnected plot points that end up being unused, and it's kind of silly. This game doesn't follow many of them, but it is still stuck in this awkward, semi-canon middle ground, and I think the hideout was just a vestige of that. This new harpoon is doing wonders with the stone resistance out of the way, though the absence of drops is basically a running gag at this point. Finally got something. I've always found the teleportation pack to be a handier utility than healing in this game, especially with enemies sometimes out of reach. My bad, the air harpoon is actually further south. Let's see that teleporter in action. Yeah, an obvious quirk is how you can move on to enemies so they can't target you. Not as viable of an exploit as it sounds, more just a funny thing you can do. Medium defense armor of air. I have a feeling this won't be the last time we come across it. Another funny graphical quirk. I wonder how they achieved this effect. We finally got it! First try, baby! Now our spell range is notably increased. This also applies to said teleporter pack. Kofu Jaga! Same spiel as before. Let's actually give this enemy a chance to hit back. Okay, expedition's over. Time to get back to questing. Oh no, oh geez, it's a swarm of Earth Gothna! And a Burnak? Remember that one time Garen sent me to fight a colony of Ice Burnak and then a squad of Rock Ussels? Yeah, I don't know why he's making us fight pushover enemies just now. You know what? Now would be a good time to test out the Slash for once. Show what it's capable of. Yeah, create a diversion as a weird lingering area of effect. I gotta stop confusing the teleporter for my Zamor gun. Well, that was a bust. Still didn't get to show off how slashes work. You see how situational the area damage is? Speak of the devil, and he doth appear. I guess those first small fries were just a warm-up. It would be unwise to leave my harpoon unequipped, but I do it anyway. Oh my god, there it is! The fabled interaction! Now it's time to spend the rest of my fight getting my ass whooped. Wait a minute, I still have something that can help me. And out of ammo. Still got one teleport left, though. The remaining enemies I can outrun. She? Kazi's a she? Yeah, it seemed Kazi and Dalu's bios and genders in this game got swapped. Now, Kazi is the warrior lady, and Dalu is the snarky guy. Here, we finally get another taste of what questing in later chapters is like, running halfway across the map back and forth between Garen and the Matoran fortress. Like I said, this game really needed some traveling shortcuts. I'm no RPG expert, but I'm pretty sure those are common. If there are any kuna around when we get there. Yeah, kuna bog snakes are another thing you can make in the Master Builder set. There are a handful of other quirks in this game which hint that more were planned to be added. Eh, this area sure brings me back. Yeah, the quest probably would have been more interesting if some python-sized robot snakes actually did show up to ambush you. It also would have been a decent excuse for once for Kazi not to help out, because she would be busy filling said containers. You know what? Now's a good opportunity to see what craftable weapons and armor are available in this chapter. Nothing that wouldn't already be accessible in Area 2 and 3. Fleeka doesn't have anything useful on him either, though I can at least show off some of the flavor text for each element you pick. Like permafrost on the coast is probably the lamest. What's even the comparison being made? Durability, I guess? That's a really good one, actually. And yeah, nothing particularly useful. Yeah, I ain't doing this one. You may have noticed a large ring of black, jagged rocks throughout this area. Yep, like Garen said, that's the Paraka's base. It's really big. We'll find a way to infiltrate it in a later chapter, but for now, we'll just be scouting the borders. Still quite the distance. Oof. There are plenty of spots along the way like this one that allow a peek inside the fortress. Already we know there are caves and fire burnac. As for that creature, get used to seeing plenty of those in the fortress. I'm afraid I don't really use the Soul Stone for much. It's kind of just a more powerful, one-time version of the Life Stone. And we have arrived. Already you can make out a dig spot, an enslaved Matoran, and another fire burnac. A hint at a more volcanic area. Might as well test my metal against one of these little guys. Nothing mind-blowing, just some extra health, movement points, and damage. Should have taken elemental weaknesses into account. Yeah, I was barely noticeable before, but if you recall, ice does extreme damage to fire enemies and vice versa. Oops, shrunk the window. You saw nothing. Kofujaga are fire-based, weaknesses strike again. I don't know where you got the Protodermis part, but sure, man. Off to the Matoran Fortress we go. Again. Again with the goofy sabotage device. Destruction crystals? It even looks like a little bomb. Thankfully, the warehouse isn't too far away from the Matoran Fortress, or at least less annoying to get to. It's just a straight beeline down this time. You know what? Let's see how you actually work. Lamp oil, rope, bombs, you want it? It's yours, my friend. And if you remember from the Chapter 3 addendum, oh, whoops. Still, the sabotage version of the room is a nice touch, I'll say it again, especially compared to the drill room blunder. Picking the wrong room sends us into a fight. Because of how Scout and Zaktan work, they made sure no escape could be possible. While we're here, I might as well show off the lower borders of this area. And this would be the blocked off spot to be eventually cleared. These rock piles look suspicious, and actually don't technically come into play. They are yet another barrier. And now it's time for the chapter endgame. Another Paraka is at large, and it's unexpectedly the leader of the group. Well, de facto leader. The Paraka prefer working separately. Funnily enough, because quick problems require quick solutions, the Matoran are actually giving us a bunch of useful freebie gear all at once. The Windstone is a movement point boosting item. I find the teleportation pack to be a little more useful, but there are some cases like Zaktan's fight where I'd argue it does have its chance to shine. I just wish the Protodermis lake wasn't so far away. Ugh. I also wish that damn Windstone helped me speed up my running outside of combat. I wish I had a smoother segue into it, but I already did a read-up on the first two Paracas, so instead of bothering you with more traveling, how about I talk about the next one on the way? That's right, it's time for another round of Bionicle bonus lore. Zaktan, codenamed the Snake, is the closest thing to the Paracas leader, and certainly the smartest of the six, which makes it a bit odd that you encounter him this early in the game. You may recognize his triple-bladed scissors, and indeed the slash weapon is modeled after it. He has standard laser vision and Skagti elemental air powers, but unlike the other Paraka, his body is made out of microscopic creatures called Protodites, which he can move separately at will like a swarm of bees. He is the only one in the known Matoran universe with this ability, and discovered it after a failed attempt by the Shadowed One to disintegrate him. Very wild stuff. According to the 2005 Style Guide, he is also the only one who knows the true nature of the antidermis virus, which, when revealed in 2007, is all levels of fucked up. Bottom line, he's not exactly the strongest, but by far the most mysterious and cunning. What goes on inside his brain is a complete enigma, and sometimes that's the scariest kind of enemy there is. This has been your moment of Bionicle bonus lore. What's that? Lecture over? We're already here? Time to see how the Snake's weird nanomachine body comes into play. Actually, equipping a weapon that drags our adversary towards us might not be the best idea for this fight. Nor is one that's exclusively close range. Well, looks like he's not giving us any head starts. I had a launcher. Not sure why I didn't decide to push him away. I seem to have forgotten that I am still completely overpowered. Ever since I got that Zamor launcher, really. Let's show off our friend's little buzzing attack before finishing him off. Yeah, it's a rapid-fire draining move. Thankfully it doesn't heal him too heavily. That would be annoying. Again, definitely a guy you want to keep your distance from. The Windstone is your ally. Last one. Can't play Ring Around the Rosie forever. And if you didn't get the Stone Burnock mask by this point, here is your substitute. A defense one too. That'll be useful for tank builds. Just because I can. Doesn't boost my ice stats one way or the other. And we made it. A massive, solid chapter, minus the rough beginning, and all the traveling. We have reached the halfway point, and pretty soon we'll catch another glimpse of the game's true colors. Until next time!